My sister stole my fiancé, now she wants my forgiveness. Guess what I said? I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were all there. The way she looked at him, the subtle comments, the way his eyes lingered on her just a little too long. But I was blind. I trusted them both. I trusted that no matter what, my own sister wouldn't betray me. And that the man I was about to marry loved me enough to resist temptation. I was wrong. Sophia and I weren't exactly close growing up, but we weren't enemies either. She was the golden child, beautiful, confident, always the center of attention. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who never took risks. We grew up in a normal working-class family. Our parents did their best, and while we never had much, we had enough. But to Sophia, enough was never enough. She wanted more money, more status, more power. She found her way out. Right after college, she married a rich businessman, moved to a different city, and practically erased herself from our family. She stopped coming home for holidays, barely called, and whenever she did, it felt like an obligation rather than genuine care. I stopped expecting anything from her. And I didn't miss her. I had my own life. I had a stable job, great friends, and most importantly, I had Daniel, the man I thought I would spend forever with. We had been together for 3 years. He wasn't rich, but he was kind, hardworking, and loved me in a way that made me feel safe. We were planning our wedding. I thought we had everything figured out. Then Sophia came back. She showed up out of nowhere, unannounced. One evening, I heard a sleek black car pull up outside our house. When I opened the door, there she was, standing on the front porch in a designer dress, wearing jewelry that probably cost more than my rent. She was still breathtakingly beautiful, but there was something different about her, something colder. "Emma," she exclaimed, flashing a perfect smile. "It's been too long." She leaned in to hug me, but it felt forced, like she was just going through the motions. I stepped aside and let her in, still processing the fact that she was actually here. It had been years since she'd bothered to visit. As we sat in the living room, she barely touched the tea I made for her. Instead, she talked about her luxurious lifestyle, her travels, the exclusive parties she attended, the powerful people she met. I nodded politely, waiting for her to get to the point. Then she did. "So Mom told me you're engaged. Who's the guy?" I smiled, pulling out my phone to show her a picture of Daniel. She took the phone, staring at the screen for a long moment before handing it back. "He's nice." There was something in her tone I didn't like. "What does he do?" "He's an engineer. Good job, stable. He's not rich, but we're happy." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Emma, love is great and all, but it doesn't pay the bills. Security matters." I felt my jaw tighten. "I can take care of myself, Sophia," she smirked. "That's cute. But one day, you'll realize love isn't enough. You should at least marry someone who can give you a better life." I wanted to argue, to tell her that money wasn't everything, but I didn't. I just let it go, thinking it was just another one of her materialistic views. I should have known better. After that night, Sophia started coming around more often. At first, I thought maybe she actually wanted to reconnect. Maybe, just maybe, she missed having a family. But I quickly realized she wasn't interested in catching up with me. She was interested in Daniel. She found reasons to visit whenever he was around. She laughed at his jokes a little too much. She asked him questions about his work, his goals, his ambitions, probing, testing, planting ideas in his head. One evening, as we were having dinner, she turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "You work so hard, Daniel," she said, twirling her wine glass. "A man like you should be aiming higher." Daniel chuckled. "I'm happy where I am. I don't need to be a millionaire to have a good life." Sophia smirked. That's what people say when they've given up on greatness. I expected Daniel to laugh it off, to say something like, "I don't care about being rich as long as Emma and I are happy." But he didn't. He hesitated. Just for a second. And that second was enough. I brushed it off at the time. Told myself I was overthinking it. But deep down, something unsettled me. A small, nagging feeling that I ignored. A mistake I would regret. They say betrayal doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, in the little things you overlook. A missed text, a distracted glance, a shift in the way someone says your name. At first I thought I was imagining it. Daniel wasn't the same. He wasn't ours anymore. A few weeks after Sophia returned, Daniel started acting different. It was subtle at first. Nothing obvious. He was distracted. He started spending more time on his phone. Our conversations felt off, like he was mentally somewhere else. I would ask him about his day, and his answers became shorter, less engaged. Just work, nothing interesting. He started canceling plans, too. At first it was small things. Sorry, babe, I'm exhausted from work. Then it became bigger things. Postponing wedding planning meetings, forgetting date nights. I told myself it was stress, that maybe work was getting to him, but deep down something didn't feel right. Then, the lies started. One evening, Daniel texted me that he had to stay late at work. I was disappointed but didn't think much of it, until I saw a notification pop up on my phone. A photo. Posted on Sophia's Instagram story. A dimly lit rooftop bar, 2 wine glasses, and the unmistakable silhouette of Daniel, sitting across from her. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, waiting for my brain to come up with a reasonable explanation. Maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was a coincidence. But I knew the way you just know when something is wrong. That night, when Daniel finally came home, I forced myself to stay calm. How was work? I asked. He didn't even flinch. Exhausting. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Did you eat? Just grabbed something quick at the office. A blatant lie. I should have called him out right then. Should have shoved the phone in his face and demanded an answer. But I didn't, because part of me was still hoping I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Daniel started dressing differently. Expensive cologne, shirts that weren't wrinkled from being thrown onto our bed. He started going to the gym more, eating cleaner, as if he was trying to impress someone. But he still came home to me, still kissed me goodnight, still held me in bed. I held on to that. I told myself, if he was cheating, he wouldn't still be here. One day, while he was in the shower, I saw his phone light up on the nightstand. A text from Sophia. You are amazing today. I can't stop thinking about you. The world around me blurred. I sat there, staring at the words, my hands shaking. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, he froze when he saw me holding his phone. Emma, what are you doing? I lifted my gaze, heart pounding. What am I looking at, Daniel? His face turned pale. It's not what you think. I laughed, actually laughed, because what else could I do? Oh, really? Because it looks like my fiancé has been amazing for my sister. Daniel didn't deny it. He didn't even try to come up with an excuse. Emma, I never meant for this to happen. I stared at him, waiting for an explanation that would make this hurt less. But there wasn't one. He sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his damp hair. It just happened. I wanted to scream. It just happened? He looked at me then, eyes filled with guilt. I love you, Emma, but I don't know. She makes me feel different. I felt my breath hitch. She makes me feel different. That was all I needed to hear. So what, Daniel? She's richer? More exciting? What does she have that I don't? He shook his head. It's not like that. I didn't plan this. That was the worst part. If he had planned it, at least it would have made sense. But no, he had let it happen. Let himself be pulled in. And Sophia? She never wanted him. She just wanted to win. As if on cue, my phone rang. Sophia. I answered, my voice shaking. You're unbelievable. She sighed, completely unbothered. Emma, don't be so dramatic. I gripped the phone tighter. You're my sister. She actually laughed. Sweetheart, if you can lose him that easily, he was never yours to begin with. I hung up. I looked at Daniel, my stomach twisting. The man I loved, the man I was supposed to marry. I thought I knew him. I didn't. Get out, he blinked. Emma, I said get out. Daniel didn't fight me, he didn't beg, didn't argue, he just grabbed his things and left. And just like that, everything I thought I had was gone. Losing Daniel should have broken me. I thought I would fall apart, that I would beg him to come back, that I would drown in the heartbreak. But something inside me snapped that night. Maybe it was the way he didn't fight for me. Maybe it was the way Sophia laughed like she had already won. Or maybe it was the realization that the person I loved, the person I planned to spend forever with, wasn't the man I thought he was. And just like that, I knew I wasn't going to be the one who suffered. The first few weeks were the hardest. I stayed at my parents' house, barely speaking to anyone. My mother kept telling me I needed to eat, that I needed to rest, but I couldn't stomach food, and I barely slept. But I refused to cry. I refused to let them have that power over me. One morning I woke up, looked in the mirror, and saw someone I barely recognized. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, a version of myself that looked weak. And I hated it. That day, I made a decision. I was going to rebuild myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be the quiet, responsible girl who played it safe. I was going to become someone they would regret losing. I moved out, I found a new apartment, a new gym, a new job with better pay. I changed my wardrobe. I cut my hair. I started becoming the version of myself I had always been too afraid to be. At first, people didn't recognize me. Wow, Emma, you look different. You seem more confident. I wasn't the same woman who let people walk all over her. I wasn't the same woman who tolerated betrayal. I was stronger. And the best part? I wasn't faking it. While I was thriving, Daniel and Sophia's relationship was already falling apart. I didn't care to know the details, but people loved gossip, and the stories made their way back to me. Apparently, Sophia was already getting bored. She had never wanted Daniel for love. She wanted him because he was mine. And now that she had him, the thrill was gone. She started treating him like a trophy she no longer wanted to display. She criticized his clothes, the way he spoke, the way he wasn't ambitious enough. You're not the man I thought you were. I thought you wanted more from life. The same way she had made him feel like I wasn't good enough, she was now making him feel like he wasn't good enough. One night I got a text. Can we talk? I stared at my phone for a long time. I knew this was coming, because men like Daniel, they always come back. I didn't reply. But then he called. And I don't know why, but I answered. Emma, I made a mistake. I didn't say anything. I miss you. I almost laughed. The irony of it, the nerve of him. I don't think you do, I said finally. I think you miss the version of me that loved you, that forgave you, that tolerated your bullshit. There was silence. She's gone. And then I hung up. Sophia was next. I ran into her at an event, one of those high society gatherings she used to drag me to before she cut me out of her life. Except this time, I wasn't the awkward little sister in a dress that didn't quite fit. I was the woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up, and she knew it. The moment she saw me, her expression froze. She looked me up and down, and for the first time I saw something new in her eyes. Jealousy. She'd taken everything from me, my fiancé, my trust, my sense of security, and yet, she had lost. Because I was standing in front of her, thriving, without her, without him, without any of the things she thought would break me. And she looked tired. Daniel was gone. Her reputation was tarnished. The people she used to impress were whispering behind her back. I could have said something cruel. I could have rubbed it in. But instead, I just smiled. Because nothing was more satisfying than watching her realize she had destroyed her own life. A year ago, I thought my life was over. I thought losing Daniel was the worst thing that could happen to me. But I was wrong. The worst thing would have been marrying a man who never truly loved me. The worst thing would have been staying small, staying weak, staying the version of myself that let people betray me. Instead, I became someone else. Someone stronger. And as I walked away from Sophia that night, I realized something. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't hate either of them. Because the best revenge is not needing revenge at all. A year had passed. A year since Daniel betrayed me. Since Sophia took everything I thought I wanted. Since I walked away and started building a life that was mine. And in that year, I became someone new, stronger, wiser, completely untouchable. I thought I'd left them behind for good, but people like Sophia, they always come back. It started with a text. Can we talk? I ignored it, then a call. I ignored that too. But Sophia never knew how to take no for an answer. So one afternoon when I stepped out of my office, she was there, waiting. She looked different. Less polished, the designer bags under her eyes didn't match her usual luxury handbags. Emma, I kept walking. Please, just hear me out. Something in her voice stopped me. I turned, arms crossed, voice cold. What do you want? She swallowed. I messed up. I almost laughed. Oh, you think? I lost everything. Good, but I didn't say that. I just raised an eyebrow, waiting. She shifted uncomfortably. Daniel, he left. Turns out he wasn't the man I thought he was. You mean he wasn't rich enough? Her lips pressed together, but she didn't deny it. I don't have anyone, Emma. Her voice was small. I thought I hated this family, but now I just miss having a sister. Ah, there it was, the final move of every manipulator. When they lose, when they burn every bridge, when no one else will take them back, they crawl back to the people they destroyed. But I wasn't that girl anymore. Sophia. I took a slow breath. You didn't just hurt me. You tore my life apart. You took something that wasn't yours just because you could. And now that it's all crumbling, you want me to pretend it never happened? She flinched. I'm sorry. I almost believed her. But the thing about people like Sophia, they're not sorry they hurt you. They're sorry they lost. So I shook my head. I forgive you. But I don't want you in my life. Her eyes widened. Emma, please. No, it felt easy. Saying no, walking away. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. A week later, I got another message. Daniel, I still think about you. I almost deleted it without replying, but then I typed back, I don't. Blocked. And just like that, the last piece of my past was gone. I used to think revenge meant making them suffer, making them feel the way I did, but I was wrong. The real revenge is indifference, is becoming someone they can never touch again. And as I stood there, feeling the weight of the past finally lift, I realized I had already won. Because I was happy, because I was free.